Hi, I'm Joel Gustafson, and this is my demonstration speech. This is my audience, my son Adam, my wife Donna, and my daughter Audrey. Racing has been a really important part of our free time over the last 10 years, as both of my sons have competitively raced go-karts across the Midwest and competed at a national level through this run that we've started since they were 8 or 10 years old. This engine represents the one of the motors that we use. This engine starts out originally as a 6.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton Animal overhead valve engine, and by the time we get done in the current state that it's in, it puts out almost 16.5 horsepower with its modifications and running strictly on methanol fuel. I've chosen to give my demonstration speech on how to properly lap a valve in the overhead valve engine. For the sake of the demonstration, I have a couple disassembled pieces to make this go a little smoother. This is a cylinder head for the animal engine. These are the valve springs, the rocker arms, and the valves are inside the combustion chamber. This is a fully assembled cylinder head for this engine. What I'm going to demonstrate is how to properly seal these valves into the cylinder head so that you don't have compression leaking, which is a horsepower robber. I also have a head that is fully disassembled with all the parts taken off, and this is a brand new intake valve that I'm going to demonstrate how to lap in, which is a process in which that you mate the seal surface of the cylinder head and the beveled edge of the valve onto the cylinder head. So the first step is to make sure that the valve fits loosely into the valve seat. Then there are several techniques, and they usually are dependent upon the mechanic and how they personally prefer to do lapping. There is a tool called the valve lapping tool, which is what this is, and it has suction cups on each end for different size valves, and you adhere that suction cup to the valve and spin it once it's in the cylinder head to seal this with a lapping compound. I personally prefer, since this head is removable, to use a standard T-handled compression wrench to hold the valve in place while we do this. The first thing we need to do is use some lapping compound. I use a Briggs & Stratton brand lapping compound that is fine and perfect for this application. I generally use a small screwdriver and put some lapping compound on it, and I gently just put a little bit on the mating surface of the valve. It does not take very much, as this is a gridded substance, and the more you put on, the harder it is to get off after you have performed the lapping procedure. So as you see, I have compound on the beveled edge of the valve. I am now going to insert that into the cylinder head against the intake valve seat. Then I'm going to attach the T-handle compression wrench to the valve and tighten it. Once that is tight, you will see that as you spin the valve, the head of the valve rotates. This process really just takes not a lot of revolutions, and as you can probably hear, as I rotate this, that gridded compound is creating friction and making a solid sealing mating surface to the seat and the valve. One part of this process is to continue to push the valve out and bring it back and continue to rotate. This keeps fresh compound on the surface that we're trying to seal. Once you've done about that much, you can then remove the wrench from the valve, take it out of the cylinder head, clean off the lapping compound that is left behind, as you can see, we get it totally clean, and you will see on the surface of the valve a ring in which that the compound went into the valve surface, and this creates a rough surface for the valve to seal against the valve seat. You then also have to clean off the seat, and once that's done, you can reinsert the valve, add the valve springs, the rocker arm, and the lash nut to set your valve lash once it is assembled back on to the engine block. One of the reasons that this is so important is that valve leakage is one of the #1 power robbers in small engines. The reason that that happens is because of the fuel that we run in these engines. We run almost 400 degrees of temperature in order to get the alcohol fuel to burn properly. As you can imagine, typically in an automotive engine, like your car, your temperature gauge roughly is between 180 and 210 degrees. So we're almost running double the temperature in these small engines, and as we do that, the surface of the valve tends to burn away. So reseating your valves on the every 6 to 12 races is a necessity to keep the horsepower in check. As I mentioned, racing has been a big part of our family's free time over the last 10 years, and after this last year, my boys have both officially retired from racing, and it will be a big loss to what we have done as a family for the last 10 years. Thank you, and this is my audience.